Russia tried to attack Ukraine with a flashy blow. I can't believe I'm falling into a death trap. They've used military bases captured inside Ukrainian territory as a springboard for a larger scale invasion. At dawn the 27th of July 2025, the Russian army surprised to launch a violent attack from a base. It is located in the Donetsk which they occupied years ago, with 50 T-93 tanks, 10 armored personnel carriers, with 70 drones that sense UAVs. Russia launches a lightning strike, high technology, to penetrate Ukraine's key defense lines. Powerful motorized squad. This is not just a patrol, it's a real invasion force, to be trained and equipped to open the door wide for the march to the west, led by a suicide drone squad, not to spy, but to commit suicide. These UAVs are programmed to track, plunge into Ukraine's defensive positions. It explodes on contact, creating corridors of deadly paving fire, the way for tanks and infantry, each carrying a high explosive strong warhead enough to penetrate the concrete. It's more terrifying, even if it's jammed, radar or unable to complete the task. The UAV will detonate itself as if programmed to sacrifice without hesitation. This is the first time since the 2002 invasion. 12. Russia launches a comprehensive integrated combination of armored forces, UAV, suicide infantry, and attack firepower, sir. The Ukrainian generals, observing the radar screen, immediately understood this is no longer a small clash. It's a calculated strategic effort to break down the defenses before the fall. On the other side of the world, the analysts, the Western military cannot hide its astonishment. Estimated cost for this single attack is more than $350 million, including combat vehicles, ammunition and power UAV system. The Kremlin is making a big bet. It's both risky and expensive. If successful, then they can wipe out defensive gains Ukraine has been building for months. But what the Russians didn't expect was that they were being watched, and Ukraine has prepared a response plan. Before the Russian armor began to advance, they've gone into a giant minefield over BA square miles, with more than 4,200 camouflaged under the fields and dirt roads. They look like harmless supply lines. Even Ukraine's plan almost fell apart when a military truck of their own. I almost ran over this minefield during the battle. If that accident happened, a chain of explosions that could have triggered early to destroy the entire minefield and make Ukraine loss of advantage the most important strategy in this battle. Will Ukraine's plan succeed? What weapons will they use to confront the power overwhelming from the Russian side? Let's watch the stressful battle. Is right away, exactly 6:40 a.m. Satellite image shows a delegation. Russian giant armor left the old bases. Donetsk, the region has been under Russian control since early 2020. The sound of the engine roaring, long march formation, iron and steel glowed in the morning sun. It's all signaling a Christmas death blow is about to be unleashed. But when Russian forces are rushing towards what they believe is Ukraine's weakness, they didn't know they were falling into a death trap. Got a battle Ukraine has been preparing for weeks in secret, with precision and patience to the cold. Donetsk battlefield, where Ukraine sets the death trap, crushing the Russian mechanized attack on direct orders from General Mykola Shevchenko. 93rd Motorized Brigade of Ukraine has turned 3 square miles of farmland into hell, a minefield in a seemingly peaceful field. More than 4,200 anti-tank has been cleverly under the new soil and plant foliage, ready to detonate at any time. Each mine is arranged in formation. Le Tactile. The goal is not just to destroy, it's also messing up the enemy formation, stretching time, and especially to break the spirit of the invaders. But what makes this trap even more cruel? It's the calculation of every detail. The narrow paths seem to be the way of life. It's actually just a dead bait. They're deliberately left empty to lure Russian drivers into the area. Built-in high-pressure sensor, sensitive enough to explode when a 10-ton tank rolls over. And then in 4 minutes, 17 Russian tanks blown out, disintegrated. There's a heavy turret that's been tossed over 15 meters, falling down like a black scrap metal. The continuous explosion echoed like thunder, not just tearing the ground apart, it's tearing apart the spirit of an entire army. The power of the trap isn't just the mass of the mine, it's also an amazingly accurate activation. Ukrainian reconnaissance UAVs quietly fly over the hive, monitor every movement of the enemy. Real-time data transfer to the command center, and when everything's in place, detonator electronics are activated and cause maximum damage. But even the finer plan, it can also be problematic. A Ukrainian logistics unit, due to reading wrong coordinates, put his own supply truck in the middle of the minefield. The remaining distance is only 2 meters. In that moment of life and death, an emergency alert from the UAV saved the crew from disaster. A terrifying wake-up call. No matter how well prepared the lines are, the power from the inside can also cause things. But that day, Ukraine held its ground. What about Russia? They slammed their heads blindly into one wing. It was a weakness. And then you have to pay 10 carcasses in a row. Oil spilling machine to the ground. Body litter in the thick grey smoke. A battle is just a trap. We've rewritten the rules of war, the modern ground. And when the smoke hasn't gone, the second wave of hell has arrived. Not from the ground, but from the horizon. 7:15 a.m. The 12th Armored Assault Battalion of Ukraine. 3 nose counterattack. From secret locations west of the beach. 32 T-84 tanks uploaded. It's backed by 10 self-propelled with the same guns. Air defense platform. Simultaneous plunge into the battlefield. Terrified and the ground shook. Ukrainian tank drivers, after months of waiting, hold. Sharpening each skill is now reinvigorated. A precise UAV intelligence. They know the enemy is in chaos. This is a golden time to end, when the Russian tanks survive. I'm still confused. Turning the gun barrel to retreat from the minefield. The Oplet squad rushed in like a storm. At 72 kilometers per hour with a flaming cannon. The first 90 seconds, 9 more Russian tanks were shot down. The frontal shots pierced through the armor, destroy the entire crew. No one has a chance to survive. The sky explodes. The remnants of Russian suicide, UAVs, instead of exploding as programmed, desperate to save the operation. A 7 pathetic defeats. Ukraine is ready. On the slopes of each armored formation guns are rotating anti-aircraft 6 guns. Weapons that can fire up to 4,000 rounds per minute. It's like a death saw. They tore through the sky with a rain of lead. A series of UAVs was shot up in the air. There was an explosion less than 10 meters from Ukrainian tank turrets. The battle is not over. But that morning on the Donetsk field, Ukraine has turned the battlefield into a test table for theory. Modern war, where tactical engineering, time and courage come together. That can crush all the traditional mechanical power. Russia broke up in just 20 minutes. The sound echoes to tie the ears. It's a crazy mixture of engine roaring, the sound of firecrackers and the sound of metal echoing through the field of death. In the sky, 47 out of 53 UAVs. The rest of Russia was shot down in less than 4 minutes. It's a terrible number. The remaining 6 pieces are misaligned or crashing into open ground. No significant damage was caused. It's because of the electronic warfare warfare of Ukraine has saturated the space with fake GPS that disorient the UAV and self-destruct. And it's not the end. From a hillside 600 meters to the east, Ukrainian artillery began firing. The goal is the edge of Russia's chaotic retreat. The shells are so incredibly accurate. Destroy the supply truck, blow up the army car, and many of the Russian soldiers who were injured were injured. A Ukrainian tank commander nicknamed Vovid the Wolf. I've described that moment in a short sentence, but obsessively they went straight to hell. We don't have to chase. Just ignite the explosion until 7:31 a.m. Less than 20 minutes after the nose of the Russian advance touched the area. The entire battlefield has been turned upside down. From a hunter's position, Russian forces are now falling prey to panic. But Ukraine hasn't stopped hiding in the rubble. Destroyed images from Ukrainian high-resolution drones. Broadcast signaling coding. Try to maintain contact with the remaining infantry unit. That's the nerve center of the whole operation. Whatever happens to this car will determine the fate of the Russian campaign in the area, and it can even shake the whole system. The front line when the sky was still full of smoke. Russian tanks continue to burn. Russian UAV crumbled like a fuselage. On the ground, the chaos disappears. Give way to a perfect plan. Until 7:35 a.m., just as the Russian advance was almost neutralized. A total of 850 Ukrainian elite infantry was quietly ambushed before and at the same time start But this is not a regular infantry. They're elite warriors. Divided into 7 battle groups. Each team consists of snipers, tank destroyer and electronic warfare unit. They've been hiding for hours in the trenches. Thorough camouflage, abandoned farmhouse and dense around the death zone. The secret name of the Frost Hook Ice campaign. Their goal is clear. When the enemy is panicking and doesn't leave any chance of recovery, the Russian soldiers survive. Start to leave the damaged car, find a hiding place and try to regroup. Ukrainian fire brigades launched simultaneously. 10 rows of a PG-29 launchers fired in a row, aimed directly at the command vehicle and the armored personnel. A bullet hit the truck carrying Russian ammunition. Creates a fireball, high 3 levels. Fire shrapnel splashed more than 100 meters. Burn everything within a radius. At the same time, Ukrainian snipers, equipped with thermal sight simultaneously targeting the commander who of the Russian team, trying to revive the disintegrating squad. Less than 6 minutes later, more than 110 Russian soldiers were removed from the battle. The rest breaks down quickly. Some threw their guns into the woods. Others knelt down and crawled for cover, panicked enough to call for help. But it's too late. Air Reconnaissance Force BA of Ukraine, which had rounded out the Russian squad 2 hours ago through an underground sewer system, has completely blocked the last line of retreat. There's no way back, no more commanders, no more UAVs, and no more hope. Donetsk is not just a battlefield, it's a tank cemetery. Donate Battle, where a Russian armored regiment disintegrated. In just 90 minutes, when the Russian soldiers began to panic and flee, they rushed straight into the thick like bullets. A moving steel wall. The gunfire was relentless. The rocks are tossed in waves. And then the unexpected moment happened. Near the southern edge of the forest, in a communications car that crashed, half Ukrainian soldiers suddenly discovered a set of devices, Russian money deposit. Inside the car, extensive military map, the satellite communications equipment, and a piece of tattered badge fell in the middle of a pile of papers. After conducting a biometric scan, the identity is quickly identified. Colonel Viktor Semyonov, commander of the 42nd Armored Regiment. It is part of the Western Military District of Russia. A key player in the Southern Strategy. Moscow, he tried to escape by reforming, dressed as a wounded conscript, into the fleeing soldiers. But a Ukrainian sergeant, the doctor, noticed an abnormality. The shoes are new. Clean is not the same. Used combat shoes. With a dedicated wearable GPS device for senior officials, things that frontline soldiers are never given. Just a few minutes later, the colonel is controlled, first aid for wounds, and put it in a helicopter under heavy protection. This is not just a prisoner, it's a living intelligence gold mine. On him, Ukrainian militants seized the data storage drive, coding orders for the next 72 hours. And diagram details of Russian withdrawal routes in the south. Ukrainian intelligence agency called the most valuable trophy since early 2023. Until 8 a.m., 85 minutes after the operation, the Russian attack began. Then the whole plan fell apart. 42 Russian combat vehicles were destroyed. More than 200 soldiers were killed or captured. Commander of the regiment, Viktor Semyonovich, has fallen into enemy hands. Ukraine not only survived, but also humiliating a mechanized force. It is said to be superior by a series of actions that combine the bravery and the precision of the 21st century. Until 8/10, the campaign is considered a bold breakthrough. Most of Russia in the last 6 months. It has now become a 7-defeat battle. The worst day on land since the early days of the war. The minefields swallowed the UAV tanks, shot down like flies. The ambush caused the Russian infantry to completely disintegrate. Even the Ukrainian general admitted that. We didn't expect it to happen so quickly. Satellite images confirm the final damage. 42 armored vehicles were destroyed. Another 14 were crippled and abandoned. More than 230 Russian soldiers killed, including a regimental commander colonel. The whole point of the regiment, the 42nd Panzer, was knocked out in less than 90 minutes. In Moscow, the Kremlin is silent. There is no official statement. There's no televised speech. Oh, one excuse. However, Western intelligence indicates Russian officials have been interrogated and investigated just hours after news of the colonel's arrest. Victor Land transmission data shape. Analysts believe this arrest exposed the loopholes serious in Russia's southern war plan. It also exposed the internal conflict between the commanders. The battlefield is on the opposite side. Ukraine is not. Noisy celebration at the Michael Military Hospital. Doctors and nurses are treating Ukrainian soldiers as Russian soldiers were injured. A powerful land photo transmitted on social networks captured the moment of a Ukrainian knight give a bottle of water to a 19-year-old Russian burned soldier. Face from a nearby explosion, trembling with fear and pain. That photo moved millions of people because it reminds us that no matter how many thermal sights you use, or precision attack, war is still a war between people, among the father's people and the neighbors. We live together on this land, even if the victory is clear, but the price of war is always there. In Washington, in a television interview, former General Marcus Holloway gave a thoughtful speech. This is not just a military victory, it's a cold reminder that in every war, humanity still needs to be kept between the lines of survival. A lesson that goes beyond military victory. This is not just a win, it's a classic lesson in discipline, strategy, and humanity. Ukraine didn't win because they had more weapons. They won because they were wiser. And that wisdom doesn't come from haste or hatred. It comes from restraint. Ukraine can absolutely flatten the battlefield with a series of cruise missiles. It can destroy everything in minutes, but they didn't. They patiently wait for the enemy to trap themselves. They put themselves at a disadvantage. They wait for the right time, weather, local knowledge, and the enemy psyche to deliver the right attack. Maximum damage to the enemy with a minimum loss of 7. that the biggest lesson isn't in combat technology, that the biggest lesson is the moral one. During the first interrogation, Colonel Viktor Semyonov, commander of the 42nd Armored Regiment, I said a thing that made everyone quiet. I didn't see it coming. Your people fight like ghosts, not with anger, but with a clear goal. The goal is to protect the homeland, not to invade others. That's the power. Really, in the Ukrainian resistance, that was the spirit. It burned out among the American Normandy, Bastogne and Fallujah. Places where courage doesn't lie in rage. It's about sticking to a principle. Ukraine, not just stopping a Russian armored regiment. But they reminded the world that long bravery does not lie in blind brawls. It's about thinking beyond the enemy, waiting longer than the enemy, and dare to be tolerant, even as the world is waiting for revenge. The battlefield calms down as the afternoon descends. But the echoes of this war will be taught in military academies for the next 10 years, because of what happened in the morning, the 27th of July 2025. It's not just an ambush, it's a masterpiece of modern war art. It's written with wisdom, resilience, and the moral death of men. In a world dominated by both quantity and technology, Ukraine did not withdraw. They plan ahead, silently waiting for the time. And when the time comes, they blow like scalpels, fast, accurate, and uncompromising. In just 85 minutes, Ukraine has disabled a Russian armored regiment, killed hundreds of soldiers, and captured Dr. alive. Key to Moscow's strategy. Russia's 7 losses are terrible. More than 350 million United States dollars. We lost a lot of intelligence, and the undefeated aura was ripped right through the field. They thought it would be easy to take, but maybe win. The largest. It's something that can't be seen with the naked eye. It's the triumph of human values in the face of irrational violence. Between the rockets screaming and the UAV falling like rain, Ukraine does not choose revenge. They choose the strategy of tolerance. They protect civilians, take care of enemy soldiers, and even to mobilize young Russian recruits who are panicking. This war, though cruel but not made by the devil, it's done by humans. Someone is wrong. Some are fighting for their homeland, and that's what makes every choice meaningful. In this chapter of history, Ukraine has reminded the world of a forgotten ideal. The power is not just in the fire. The power is the intelligence to control fire. And the heart is humane enough to see people in the enemy. As this battle recedes into the books, education and video news, remember something deeper than winning. In a world that's cold and chaotic, Ukraine proved that the discipline of Avian Heel, dignity and moral responsibility still exists. They don't just win a battle, that they've defended a principle. And maybe that's the most important victory. If you're touched by this story, please like it, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. It's your voice that helps stories clone like this continue to learn radiating. Yes, today's video, please allow me to pause here. Hi, and see you in the next video.